Hello and welcome to episode 1 of the Great at Everything podcast. I am your host, Maya Wilson, and in this episode, I will be sharing an introduction and the vision for this show. To get started, I'll share my story and then build from there. As I mentioned, my name is Maya, spelled M-I-A, and I am the creator of the Great at Everything podcast and community. I am an engineer, certified project manager, speaker, strategist, wife, mom, and most importantly, I am a believer. I was born in Orangeburg, South Carolina, and lived there until midway through my 6th grade year, and then I lived in both Ridgeway and Martinsville, Virginia. I was introduced to sports at an early age in the form of gymnastics, where I discovered that not only was I a good gymnast, but I was a great athlete and became a competitive gymnast who won medals in both individual and overall categories. I was also introduced to Jesus through reading the Bible with my mother at a young age and was baptized for the first time shortly after. After moving to Virginia, I quickly adapted and went on to graduate as number 2 in my high school class, while also being pretty popular and a student athlete who participated in track, basketball, and cheerleading. After graduation, most people said that they didn't know that I was that smart. So my ability to excel in academics, sports, and my relationships as a young adult taught me early on that you can be great at everything without sacrificing who you are, relationships, or the things that you want to achieve. I continued to excel in life during college, where I received my Bachelor of Science and my Master of Science in Electrical Engineering. I finished my undergraduate degree 1 semester early and as a top 5 graduate in the College of Engineering. I maintained a 4.0 GPA in my graduate studies and joined Cisco Systems, the tech company, not the food services Cisco, in 2008 as an engineer. In 2009, I celebrated 2 major achievements, one being that I became debt-free and the other being that I started to get serious about my walk as a believer due to a series of events that drew me closer to God with the hunger for more of Him. I met my husband Will in late 2010, got married in the early part of 2011, and we bought our home in 2012. In 2013, I started volunteering more in the community through the Distinguished Young Women Scholarship Program for high school senior young women by judging local programs and being the chair of the Guilford County program. Also in 2013, I was given the opportunity of a lifetime to transition into a role where on paper I was not qualified or even a considerable candidate. Nevertheless, I transitioned into a project manager role within Cisco, earned my project management professional, or the PMP, and I became a high-performing employee who was highly recognized and sought out for my skills and abilities. 2015 became another year of great opportunities for me when I was asked to become the director of ministries in the church I was in at the time. I was also asked to become one of the project managers for the 2016 U.S. National Conventions. In my role as the director of ministries, I had all of the leaders within our church reporting to me. The church was about a 1,500 member congregation, about 1,000 active members, and about 30 ministries, which had roles in both the president, vice president, and the secretary. So for all of these ministries and everyone that fulfilled a role, they reported to me as the director of ministry. Now, for my role as the project manager of the conventions, previously everything that I was doing as a project manager was employee focused. So everything that we did on my it started as a 2-person team and then it grew a little bit as the years went on. But everything that we did was designed to attract, develop, motivate, reward, and retain a diverse workforce. So all of that was employee focused. However, a manager approached me because he wondered if I was interested in becoming a customer-facing project manager. Now, I had zero interest because as an engineer, I was customer-facing and I just had no desire to work with customers anymore. I really enjoyed working with the employees. So when he mentioned that he had a role in supporting the U.S. national conventions, I gladly accepted that role because number one, it was temporary, and number two, it allowed me to show that I could be a customer-facing project manager, although I really didn't want to do it long term. So both of these roles that I was given or presented to me in 2015 allowed me to perfect my leadership. I became pregnant during the last few months of the conventions project with my son Chase, and I was pregnant during the actual conventions. But I continued leading my team without sharing the news widely until a few months after at the team celebration event. So if you happen to check out the conventions, specifically the 2016 Democratic National Convention, just know that I was there, my team was there. We were in the background ensuring that the network was operating smoothly, and I was there pregnant. In 2017, I gave birth to Chase, was asked to join the council of the church I was in at the time, and I became a certified professional coach. I decided to pursue my lifelong dream of becoming an entrepreneur and started my first business in early 2018, and I transitioned to full-time entrepreneurship in the same year. Now, I had done network marketing before, but this was my first from scratch business. And my faith leap into full-time entrepreneurship was a pivotal point that taught me a lot about myself, entrepreneurship, ministry, and a host of other unexpected things. Now, although it may seem that I have had many great experiences, there have also been times where I found myself in the not so favorable life situations, including being falsely arrested and convicted at the age of 15, being mistakenly blamed as the reason behind a senseless murder in the junior year of my high school career, being raped, cheated out of earned positions, overlooked for opportunities, mistreated by many in authority, and misunderstood by many. Multiple times, I have had physical conditions and medical conditions where I sought out various doctors only to be misdiagnosed, undiagnosed, told I was depressed and it was all in my head, and in some cases, eventually being diagnosed and healed after years of pain and mystery. However, I knew in every situation I have faced that God remained in control and that I would also have to be great at forgiving, loving, navigating adversity, and helping others thrive during life's unfortunate circumstances. After all, we are called to love, forgive, fight the good fight of faith, and more, regardless of the circumstances. Now that you have some background on me, let's get into where the idea for this podcast and community came from. Near the end of my corporate career and early in my business career, I learned about a term called multi-potentiality, which is an educational and psychological term referring to the ability and preference of a person, particularly one of strong intellectual or artistic curiosity, to excel in two or more different fields. One article describes multi-potentiality as being excellent at many things. It was late one night and I was trying to figure out why I couldn't seem to choose just one thing when it came to my business focus. I came across a TED Talk with Emily Wapnick speaking on the subject of why some of us don't have one true calling. In her talk, she shared about multi-potentiality, and it was as if my entire life all of a sudden made sense. I finally understood why I would apply for about 15 different roles. Yes, all at one time, and none of them were in my traditional career path, nor were they roles where I had direct experience. This also made sense why I wanted to start a tech company and be a coach, a dancer, a CrossFit champion, a natural hairstylist, and other things. Just about anything that sounded interesting, provided a challenge, and I knew I could excel at, I wanted to be it, and I knew I would be great at it. I also knew the things I never wanted to be or try, and I was great, and I am great at avoiding those things. So after about a year of me learning about multi-potentiality, I had the opportunity to attend some training with Dr. Faith Wokoma. She was leading a fivefold school, a school of the prophets, and a spiritual development school over the course of 2 weeks. And I gladly jumped on board because my spiritual life was in shambles at the time. And I'll come back to why it was in shambles in a second. But it was during the 2 weeks in her trainings that I finally understood multi-potentiality from a spiritual perspective. And I was comfortable enough to share and explain it widely, which is what I will do in another podcast. I like to make sure that everything I do, say, etc. is in alignment with God. So once I had the full picture and the foundation of where multi-potentiality came from and why it is all of a sudden on the rise, I was ready to step into this assignment with full gear. Now, going back to my spiritual life being in shambles. After leaving my corporate job for full-time entrepreneurship, I was working with a business coach. I had knowledge and experience, and I had what I thought was everything I needed to be successful. But my life seemed as if it just started falling apart. I was rudely awakened to the fact that I didn't know half of what I know now about spirituality and God's kingdom. I now know that I had to go through a season on learning and developing before I could be anybody's anything, and I'm so glad for that season. As I was working with my coach, who, by the way, was not cheap, I started to get annoyed during our sessions and our mastermind sessions. I had no idea what New Age was, so although I knew something was off, I didn't know what. I ended up separating from my coach, my contract, and the group mastermind I was in because I became overwhelmed with annoyance. I had no idea if she knew what New Age practices were, but as she started talking more and more about some of the people that she was following and some of the strategies that she was getting from those people, I just couldn't take it anymore. I now know that Holy Spirit was at work, but back then I couldn't tell you what was going on. And even worse, each time I signed a client, I got worse. Knew something was really off. I shared some of what I was experiencing with my pastor at the time, but I was not receiving the help I needed to help me deal with all of the emotions I was feeling. Now, that's not a bad or a negative reflection on him. It's just that I was at a place in my life where I was going to have to go through a process, and it was going to be up to me to figure out how to navigate it. No wonder the saying is that hindsight is 20/20. As things progressed, I even got to a point where I reached out to my pastor and stated that I had accepted my call, but I didn't know what that meant. Most of the time when we hear of callings, it is mostly associated with ministry. So I was in a rut emotionally. I felt like God was calling me, and the only thing I could do was accept it, even if I didn't know what that meant. I was expecting a sit down to help understand and make sense of my life at that moment and what this call was about. But I was told to prepare an initial sermon to be licensed to preach, which only made me even more confused and uneasy than what I was before. So looking back on that time of my life now, I can laugh and understand what was happening. But during that time frame, I was a wreck. As I stated, Holy Spirit was doing a work in me. And thankfully, during those 2 weeks of training with Dr. Faith, I was able to calm down, get understanding, get a hold on my life, process what was happening, and most importantly, get the clarity I needed around multi-potentiality. I ended up leaving the church I was in with much prayer and consulting with God, and have now joined a church where I know I will be challenged, developed, and commissioned to do all that I am called to do in ministry, business, and everywhere else I am called. Now that I have shared my journey of my life and the things that led up to the creation of the Great at Everything movement, I hope you are able to see yourself in my story, and hopefully you see yourself way more in the mountaintop moments rather than the valley moments. My hope is that you're starting to get a little clarity on why you think and do certain things, why your life and path seems so unique, and hopefully you don't feel weird or crazy. I am a firm believer in helping others avoid the areas where I have stumbled and outperform in the areas where I have excelled. So in each episode, I plan to share more information to help you become a high and multi-potential leader who excels in everything you put your mind to do. There is a need for you to know who you are and walk boldly in it if you are going to maximize the influence, impact, and income assigned to you. Part of your unique ability as a multi-potential leader is that you are great at problem solving, seeing the larger picture while also seeing the details, and being able to quickly adapt to respond to the environment around you. In this current climate where the world has so many issues that require another level of resolution, you will be one of the sought out leaders for wisdom, guidance, and supernatural resolutions. There is another level of success that you are assigned to that will advance the kingdom for the greater. And you are among the trailblazers, innovators, change agents, thought leaders who are going to be raised up for such a time as this. You are called to blaze new paths, and more often than not, you will face discouragement and feel as if you lack the proper support to achieve the task. However, Holy Spirit will teach you, and through this podcast and the Great at Everything community, I will be sharing as much information and wisdom to help you be great at everything you are called to be and nothing you aren't. Part of my vision is to provide awareness, activation, and action plans in alignment with seeing you confidently operating in excellence in every aspect of your life. Innovating, which is what you were created to do, may make your life seem as if everything is falling apart. This has more to do with your environment than it has to do with you. So know that you are not alone, you are not weird, you are not doing too much, and most of all, you are not crazy. You were born for this and created for such a time as this. Part of the long-term strategy of the Great at Everything movement is for others to not only embrace us, but for this community to be the go-to community for our unique ability to draw from our diverse expertise to problem solve, innovate, and create on a level that has not yet been fully utilized. So yes, while I love talking and I enjoy talking, teaching, and helping you transform, this is really bigger than that. This is about you being ready to step into all God has assigned to you and for you to do it boldly because of the confidence in your identity and ability, knowing that God has equipped you with everything you need. So if you are listening to this podcast and you are not yet part of the community, join us by going to greatateverything.com/join. Until the next episode, don't just be great. Be great at everything you are called to and nothing you aren't.